Hello. Tonight I'm going to talk about the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy because it's been a while since I've played it, and I actually played it twice, so I actually have an opinion that changed with time. So, with the original games, Crash Team Racing was one of the first video games I ever played, but my thoughts on the remake of that is a different video for a different day. As for the original trilogy by Naughty Dog, I only played the third one. A relative of mine had it on the PlayStation and was done with it, so he let me have it. And it was a lot of fun to play. I never found the hot cocoa level because I didn't know how to get to it and I didn't have a guide. And I got to the other hidden level, but I only got its gem. I never did its relic. So I never fully completed the game. I got enough gems to do the final battle and unlock the final cutscene, but that's it. So on playing the Insane Trilogy, it was my first exposure to a version of the first two games. And in the past, I had played Mind Over Mutant and Crash Bandicoot Purple, and I thought Crash Bandicoot Purple was alright. I never played Spiral Orange, but I heard that's inferior. And Mind Over Mutant, I thought it was hilarious when I played it, but it was frustrating to play. So, it's a bit of a mix for me. But to this day, a lot of those jokes still make me laugh. Maybe it's just my childish nature. So, playing the Insane Trilogy, the first game was incredibly difficult for me. I'm not used to platformers, especially not from that era. And I was wondering if the original game really was this hard. And I looked it up and that the jumping mechanics are a little different. But it was really difficult for me to get through it all. But I did 100% complete it. It was getting through each level the first time that was the hardest part, because I didn't know what to expect. So, with the second game, I had much better time with that one. It wasn't as difficult, and I 100% completed that as well. And my playthrough style with the first and second game was, first game, I was trying to complete as much as I could before I made it to the final boss, and then after that, got the color gems, got everything else. I even gold reliced every single level. Can't platinum because I don't have that power. Second game, kind of a similar thing. I made it to the end, which is the best thing you can do because it will unlock the speedy shoes, and then use that to get all the gold relics and all the gems. Third game was a lot of fun for me to play again, but I realized that the only reason is because I played the original as a kid. And I kind of put the third game on like a similar level to the second game. The first game, like, it is fun to play, but a first timer can find it very frustrating if they're not used to that type of gameplay. Because I kind of had a mixed reception with the first game, while the second and third game was a much better experience. But then, on my PlayStation 3, I downloaded the original trilogy to play that, and it was not easy for the first game getting through every level without dying to get the gems. It took 7 hours in one go, but I did it. I'm kind of glad the original game had no relics because that would not have been fun. Second game, same thing. I was able to fully complete it, but the original second game is actually harder in some places because you can't get the speedy shoes from the final boss fight. So with the remake, I'd say from a gameplay aspect, the remake is probably the definitive way to play all three of the games. Except for some aspects in the third one, I found that everyone's complained about those Coco, like, what is it? water skiing level. I don't know what that thing is called, but those controls are pretty slippery in the remake. It's doable. I got gold relic to every one of those levels, but I will not platinum them because I just can't. I don't have the time, and it'll take way too much practice. So, in terms of actual gameplay, outside of the Coco levels, I'd say that all three games do a great job of recreating the original gameplay. And something I realized is that the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy mostly got attention for its art style and graphic capabilities and its use of polygons. And when you compare it to other games of the time, you can really see it. Because Super Mario 64 came out the same year. Great gameplay, I played a little bit of it, but it wasn't my kind of game. I'm not knocking it, it's a great game, especially for 1996. It's a blessing for that. But the graphics was not the strong point. It's the gameplay. That's always the case for Mario. Graphics are never the strong point for Nintendo. They always want to emphasize gameplay first. Which, in this world, that's great because many years from now, you can just remake an old game with decent graphics and it'll work fine. It's a reason why the graphics for the Crash Insane Trilogy do a good job. And actually, a lot of people have mixed receptions with how they recreated a lot of it. I would say that it's very faithful in recreating the original games. However, and also it kind of plays it safe with how it recreates things to where it looks like the original game, but there isn't anything added to it. It's just playing the original games with the same thing. Like, if you're not a fan of the original games, then don't even bother playing this remake, because I don't think it's going to convince you. As for other aspects, a lot of the sound effects and music are iconic in the original, and when I replay the Insane Trilogy a second time, I had a lot more fun with it than the second time around, since I had played the originals, and that I actually really love the sound design for the Insane Trilogy. I have played it without the music, and just hearing the sounds of him walking and jumping is really great, as well as the ambience from when you turn the music off. As for the recreated music, it's a shame that they didn't ask the composer if they could feature the music from the original in this, because that would have been interesting, because a lot of the recreated tracks are on par to where it doesn't, none of the new tracks bother me at all. Not even the temple level, which a lot of people aren't fans of. But the only complaint I have for the recreate track is the lack of the water phone, because it really made the track scary when it played, which water phones aren't cheap, or at least they're not too expensive. I don't think they are. They could have easily gotten one or used a sample. And I don't even know. Do they use a real orchestra for these new tracks, or is it all sampling? Because if it's sampling, it's great. But I don't know. Voice acting. This is going to be a really easy one for the first game. I'd say all the acting in the original game is on par, if not better, than the original. Because Brendan O'Brien was a great voice actor, but having him play every character was not the best idea. Because everyone agreed that getting Clancy Brown to play Cortex in the second game was a much better improvement than his original performance. Because I just don't think that O'Brien's portrayal of Cortex was very fitting. Brown's is, definitely. As for, I would say that Lex Lane is a much better Cortex than Brendan O'Brien, and Maurice LaMarche is a much better Embryo than Brendan O'Brien is. And also count that for the second game, because like Brendan O'Brien reprised his role in the second game, and actually I found the voice a little annoying when I played the original. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the way he talks, or maybe the audio compression made it worse. Maybe that's the case. Because when you compress audio like that, it sounds like it's recorded with a terrible microphone, which is never the case because it's the 90s. They had high quality mics. So, the rest of the characters, there really isn't anything to say. It's practically the same. A lot of people hate Crash's new voice, but I think it's more or less the same because when the original trilogy was out, a lot of people hated his voice. Like, you can't please everyone. I think Jess Harnell has gotten a lot better because when I listen to his performance in the Radical Entertainment era, it sounds like he was directed really badly. Or he just wasn't given maybe the right amount of time, I don't know. But the older you get, the better you get your craft. So, on to the second game. I already mentioned, let's see, Clancy Brown, I think, will always be the best Cortex because he's able to pull off like a very serious way of talking, but you also know the character's pretty pathetic too. Lex Lang's performance is pretty good. It's great, but it's always just comedic. Like, they really emphasize how pathetic of a character he is. Which he is in the original, but the new voice really does show, like, how much they amp that up. I already mentioned Maurice LaMarche. As for Coco, I like Debbie Derryberry's performance in the Sane Trilogy much better than the original actress. I actually found her voice, like, a little grating when I played the original game. And like I said before, I don't know what it is. Like, the final line is actually unintentionally funny to me. It's like, it's still up there. Just the way it's said. I don't know. I really don't. It's kind of amusing with the original games that they never explain where Coco came from. I assume that she was being worked on and experimented by Cortex as well, while Tawna was still captured. Because that's the only thing that makes sense. Maybe she was being experimented to be like an assistant scientist, which is why she's good at technology. That's my theory. Because there are technically 9 canon bandicoots. Crash, Tawna, Coco, Crunch, Fake Crash, and the 4 trophy girls. I'm not counting the evil Crash because I think that's a different dimension. And I'm not counting anything else because I'm only counting characters that have been brought back for these new games. Because with the new racing game, all 9 of those characters have been introduced. At least, I think they've been. I think I've played as them all. So, there you go. So, I don't think there are any other characters to speak of when it comes to the second game, because I think they're all silent. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Ripperoo, because in the first game it was a stock sound effect from, no, not stock sound effect, voice recording from Lady and the Tramp, where I can never watch that hyena and Lady the Tramp the same way, because I also hear Ripperoo in that voice. They just speed it up a little bit. But I get why in the new game they can't get the voice clip anymore, because it's likely they can't even get a good audio clip of it, or maybe there's a copyright issue. But Jess Harnell did a good job. So, rest of the characters, you can't really say anything, because they don't really talk. So, moving on to the third. Oh wait, no, I forgot Engine. Engine's about the same to me. Maybe Brendan O'Brien's a little better. Was it better Brendan O'Brien? I don't know. But I'm glad that they brought back the digital effect in the Sane Trilogy, because otherwise I don't think that it works dramatically. But I kind of miss the line that Engine says when he's defeated, like saying the Cortex will not be pleased. That line's removed. I have a similar issue with the third game, like taking away his line, not again. As for the rest of the characters in the third game, Entropy's about the same for me. But Uka Uka is probably like, I kind of considered Don DiMaggio's performance on equal footing with Clancy Brown. So, there you go. There's that one. Tiny Tiger, both voices are about the same to me. Dingodile, I actually like his new voice a little more. I'm curious to know what Australians think of Dingodile's voice, because every single time he's appeared, he's played by an American doing a fake accent. I've never seen any complaints from any major Australian reviews, so I don't know. Maybe they're just used to it, or maybe it's not that noticeable. Because if it were particularly bad, I would have noticed it. But I don't watch a lot of Australian media, so I'm not familiar with what the accent really sounds like. So, with that, I think that's all of them. I think that's every character for the voice acting. But I had a much better time playing the Sane Trilogy after playing the originals. That's actually my biggest recommendation. If you can get hold of the originals, play them and don't rush through them unless you want to, and then play the Insane Trilogy. It's fun to make the comparisons. And I played it on the PlayStation 4, so a couple years from now I'm going to get a gaming PC and try it again, because I've heard they really amped up the graphics for the PC, which makes sense because PC has much better capabilities than a cheaper console. Well, I think that's all I have to say, because like only the third game in racing is a part of my childhood, like in a major way. Otherwise, there wasn't really any nostalgia when I was playing the first two games. But even playing the original games and then going back to playing the Insane Trilogy again was a little more fun. So, with that being said, I'll end the video.